Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to my channel, to my bookland, and to our coffee times together. And today I finally am here to bring you my September wrap-up, or as it happened to be, the Monster-A-Thon wrap-up, because every book that I read in the month of September was for the Monster-A-Thon.
It's coffee time!
So the Monster-A-Thon was one of the best readathons that I've done this year, because it was all about spooky things, about monsters, about haunted houses, about creatures. So that's something that I like, and I thought it was great to read all of these kind of books, you know, before the October month, which is Halloween month. And I absolutely loved the people that organized it, the different teams, the fact that we had to terrorize the villagers with so many pages that we were reading, and I absolutely loved everything about these readathon, and I'm definitely going to be joining next time. If you want to check them out, their handle in Twitter is also Monster-A-Thon, so you can, you know, stay tuned for the next one. I'm not sure if they're gonna make one in between or if they're going to wait until next September to do the next edition. So with that being said, I read a total of 10 things in September. It's not too bad, it's also not my best, but I am very pleased because I've been very busy lately. I just have the feeling my life gets busier and busier every week, but nevertheless, 10 things is not bad at all, and I'm here to tell you about all of those 10 things. Let's start as always from the worst read to the best read. So sadly, I got a book from NetGalley called Listeth by A. Kerbash, and sadly, I had to DNF this book. If you were following my reading vlogs for the Monster-A-Thon, you know that I was struggling with the book. It had everything for me to love it, but I just didn't. It was supposed to be this cool thriller horror story, and I just could not, for the love of me, get into the story or into the characters. We're following the story of a journalist that likes to write about the supernatural. And basically he gets to this abandoned place, this abandoned building that he has heard of, that it's supposed to be haunted, and he doesn't tell anybody that he's going there, so nobody knows that he's there. And while he's approaching this apparently abandoned building, he passes out, and when he wakes up again, he is in a mental institution in a bed, and he doesn't know what the heck he's doing there. He doesn't understand, and he is trapped there with all the patients, and he's trying to figure out a way to get out. So I thought, this is gonna be my jam. This sounds fantastic. But the whole story was told in a way that I was very messy. I was confusing characters all the time. I didn't even know what was happening anymore. And there were some flashbacks that were unnecessary. You didn't even know which character was having the flashback. I don't know, it was just, for me, very messy. Maybe it was just me, but I decided to DNF it at 56%. I really tortured myself to make it to 56%, but I was suffering so much, and I felt bad because it was an arc that was given to me. I still reviewed it, but I did put on the first line of my review that I had DNF'd it at 56%, but I still felt like I wanted to give some sort of feedback. Like I said, I felt bad because it was an arc that was given to me for a review, and I don't like to DNF these kind of books, but this one I just could not push through. Next, with one coffee mug, we have Hatchet by Gary Paulson, and this is, I have learned later, not horror. And it is based on the story of this 13-year-old boy that goes into a little plane with, it's only him and the co-pilot, and the co-pilot is having some troubles, and they end up crashing in the middle of nowhere, and this 13-year-old boy needs to survive all by himself. So he needs to find water, he needs to find shelter, he needs to find food. And I picked up this book because while I was looking for horror books, Amazon suggested this book as, you know, related searches. And because of the cover, like, can you blame me that I thought this was horror? The title and the cover, I was like, but it ended up being just a survival story. I mean, it's kind of a horror situation when you're left abandoned in an island, but I didn't enjoy the book because in the second half it was extremely repetitive and it was just focusing too much on basically killing animals, so I was not happy about that either. And this is a first book in a series, so needless to say, I'm not going to continue with the series, and I'm probably gonna be also passing on this book to somebody else, or you know, just putting it on the on-haul pile, because definitely not gonna keep it. With 2 coffee mugs, we have The Turning by Francine Prose, and I had high expectations for this book because, again, I loved the premise of it. It is this young teenager that goes to this mansion that is in the middle of an island where nobody else lives, to take care of a couple of children during summer. And then, you know, he starts to realize that there is something spooky going on in the house. So I was like, haunted house story, count me out. Not good. Basically, this is a guy that, you know, he and his girlfriend have this kind of forbidden relationship, kind of Romeo and Juliet style, and he's been sent in summer to this mansion to work, to take care of the children that live there. And when he gets there, he realizes that the children are a little bit weird, that weird things are happening in the house, and he basically tells us most of the story through letters that he sends to his dad and his girlfriend. And at the beginning, you know, even though this is YA and it was reading really middle grade, even though it was reading really middle grade, I thought that the story was okay at the beginning, you know, very basic, but still okay, a typical haunted house story. But then towards the second part of the book, things started to get messy, decisions and things started not to make sense, and I did not like it at all. The second half was like stupid. Our main character was saying things and making decisions that didn't make any sense anymore to me, so yeah, I did not enjoy this one either. Next, and with 3 coffee mugs, it's a book that I had high expectations for, and it ended up disappointing me, and that is Campfire by Sean Sarles. And I really wanted to love this book because it is about, you know, spooky stories that are told in the campfire. We're following the story of Maddie. She's a teenager, and honestly, her character at the beginning was very annoying, very naive, and saying and doing things that I was like, girl, excuse me. But I get that this is a YA book, so not all characters are going to be very adult thinking. And not all characters have to have things figured out because it is a YA story. And basically, her family wants to spend a last summer all together with some friends, and they decide to go to this retreat with, you know, you can tent there and you can have campfires, and they go there with one guide that it is explaining them, you know, how everything works. And one night at the light of the campfire, they start to tell each other horror stories, and the guide that brought them there tells them a story that it is related to those woods, to that forest. And basically the next day, the story that he told starts to come true. Now, the book is very slow paced at the beginning, which is something that probably also made me not love the book so much, because it is like 80% slow and then 20% all the cool action good stuff happens, and I just wish that they would have taken more time for the good stuff and the parts that I did enjoy when shit started to go down. So I would have loved to see more of that, and not having the feeling that the end part where things are really happening was kind of rushed. With 3.5 coffee mugs, we have The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, and this has been my first Ruth Ware book that I have read. I liked it, but I thought it was a regular thriller. It did have really cool plot twists. Some of them you were already seeing coming, but nevertheless I enjoyed it. But because the story didn't have anything that really truly shocked me, that's why I ended up giving it only 3.5. It is the story of this woman that she somebody breaks into her apartment and she's very traumatized about it, and at work they offer her to go and cover a story because she's a journalist, she writes for a magazine. And so they sent her in this boat where there are only 10 cabins, and it's supposed to be this exclusive trip, and you know, she's supposed to go and check it out and see how it is and then report. And so they've only invited like special guests, and the first night when she's there, she thinks she saw somebody being pushed off the boat to the sea to die, and she starts to investigate, and people keep telling her that what she saw could not be. So it's kind of like this investigation. This all happens at the very beginning, so it's not a spoiler or anything. So it felt at the beginning, you know, a little bit Agatha Christie-ish, and I really did like that, but because it didn't like shock me or surprise me like a good thriller might do at the end, you know, where you're like, oh my god, I didn't expect that. That's why I kept it to only 3.5 coffee mugs, but it is a nice thriller to give it at least one read. If you have read other books by Ruth Ware, let me know down below which one was your favorite, so I might pick up that one next. Then I read One by One by D.W. Gillespie, and I gave this one as well a 3.5 coffee mug rating. I got this one also as an ARC from NetGalley, and I really did enjoy this one. The story is very basic, but I did love it. But disclaimer alert for child abuse, just gonna leave it there. Basically, we follow this family: father, mother, daughter, teenage boy, and a cat that move into a new house. And the daughter starts to feel a little bit uneasy about the house. She starts to feel like they might not be alone, and basically she finds these painting on the wallpaper, as you can see on the cover of the book, that portrays also a family kind of drawn as stick figures. And basically there is also a pet in this drawing, and one day the pet has a red cross on it, and then the cat of the family disappears, and so on and so forth. The crosses appear and the person disappears. So that was the premise of the book, and I was really excited about it. I did enjoy it. It doesn't have per se anything that is super fresh or super new, but I thought that it was a really nice thriller, kind of gothic-ish story about a haunted house, and so I really did enjoy it. With 4 coffee mugs, we have Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco, and this is book 2 on the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I really did enjoy this one because it is the 1800s and we are hunting Vlad Tepes. We keep following our main characters from the first book, Audrey, Rose, and Thomas, and they're being sent to this school to learn basically more about the morgue and the corpses, because that's basically what they do, and that we see that they do in book 1. And so while they're in this very prestigious school, people start to show up dead, and they have to investigate who is doing that. There is a lot of superstitions in the town, and everybody thinks that Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler, is back from the dead. And I absolutely loved it. I loved this one more than the first one. I'm not sure if it's because I already knew the characters, so it felt a little bit more like going back home, you know, and revisiting these characters. I really loved the dynamic between them, and I absolutely loved the part where they were really hunting him and how were they discovering things and investigating things. And the second part of the book had a more kind of like how to say this, kind of like a investigation through tunnels and things like that, and it was so cool. So yeah, I really did enjoy this one a lot more than I thought actually, and I'm definitely gonna be picking up the next book in the series. Next, with 4.5 coffee mugs and one that really surprised me, it is Contagion by Erin Bowman. When I picked up this book, I have to be honest with you guys, I thought it was just going to be an okay sci-fi, but it ended up being an awesome sci-fi combined with horror book. Loved it, and I'm gonna pick up the second book as soon as I can because I really did enjoy it. It gave me vibes of The Thing or maybe Event Horizon a little bit, but definitely The Thing. And it is the story, we are living in a futuristic universe, and there is this crew in a lab doing, you know, their work, and suddenly there is an alarm that goes off and they all have to be evacuated. And while they are in the spaceship that has evacuated them, they hear an SOS call and they decide to go and investigate, but it is coming from a planet that is not very habitable, and half of the planet is basically too bright, I believe, and the other one is too dark, and in the middle you cannot even live there. So they end up going there, and the weather conditions are horrible, and they start to find out that the last crew that landed there are probably all dead, and that there is this virus that if you get this virus you end up becoming kind of like a zombie creature. And I absolutely loved it, and it was intriguing all the time, and I loved all the characters, and I loved that the author was not scared of leaving people behind. I don't like stories that are like sci-fi horror and nobody dies at the end of the book, because you're like, excuse me. I just don't think they are realistic, you know what I mean? And so I appreciate when sacrifices have to be made. So if you love sci-fi combined with horror, I would definitely tell you to pick this one up. It is a YA book, but I absolutely loved it, and it does not feel like it's too much, you know, YA, if you know what I mean. Another one that really surprised me and I absolutely loved, and with 5 coffee mugs, is Murderabilia by Craig Robertson. And for this one, I'm gonna give you a disclaimer for nearly everything. This is a book that is based on an investigator, and she starts investigating this new case where the victim has been put up for public display. And she starts to investigate so deep that she starts to uncover a, you know, website that sells Murderabilia, which is memorabilia that comes from murders, from either from the victim or from the murderer. And she goes really deep into the dark web, and I absolutely love that. But I am somebody that really likes to read about true crime, and there's a lot that I can take when it comes to that. But this book does describe a lot of murders and, you know, things from the crime scenes and what they were used for, things like that. So if you're really sensitive to this kind of stuff, this book might not be for you. But if you're like me and you love true crime stories and stories about murders, then this might be for you, because I really truly enjoyed it, and that's why I gave it 5 coffee mugs. Next we have the other 5 coffee mug, and that is The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Volume 1. I had to read this for one of the challenges. I did complete all the challenges for the Monster-A-Thon, and I did all the extra kind of video challenges except the create your own monster. It came in a time where I had no time at all, so I didn't manage to do that one, but all other things I've done. And this, I went back to these. I remember reading these a long time ago, and then I watched the show and I had forgotten how much darker the graphic novel is, which plus points. So it's basically the same story as you have seen in the Netflix exclusive Sabrina series. It's just a little bit darker, and it goes a little bit further when it comes to uncomfortable and disturbing. And Madame Satan here is everything, and I've always loved her as a character. So if you love the Netflix show, you might want to pick up the graphic novel if you don't mind things to be a little bit more disturbing. If you're unfamiliar with the story, which would be a bit weird because there's been so much talk about it since the Netflix show, we're following here the story of Sabrina, which is half human, half witch, and she lives with her aunts, and she has trouble to decide when her birthday is coming around to decide if she wants to stay human or join the witches. And then she would have to give up her boyfriend, which is a human, which is Harvey. And it's kind of teenage angst combined with Satanism. praise Satan. And I absolutely loved both the Netflix show and the graphic novel. The last thing that I want to mention that I read, but I did not read this book completely, is this beautiful thing here. It is Unnatural Creatures, Stories Chosen by Neil Gaiman. This is a compilation of short horror stories, and I read 3 stories, which were the 3 that, you know, there was one for each team, so I read those 3 and I love them. And if you like, you know, this kind of scary stories to tell in the dark, all of these kind short horror stories, I would definitely recommend you to pick this one up. It's not all 100% horror. There was one about a creature, so it's also about creatures, but they are short but sweet. One of the things I love the most is that the 3 stories that I read were so different from each other, so I'm definitely going to be reading the rest of the stories from this book. And that is everything that I read in the month of September. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what you have been reading, and if there is any creature monster book you would recommend to me, let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Please give the video a big thumbs up for support. Subscribe to the channel if you're not a subscriber yet. And also, if you're new here, click on the notification bell so you're notified every time that I upload a coffee time. If you have Twitter, Facebook, Goodreads, or Instagram, I do have accounts on all those social media, and the links to that can be found in the description box down below. And I'll see you all in the next coffee time. Bye!